is just a huge honor for me to be at our 15th annual Townie meeting with one of my biggest role models and idols ever, Gary Severance.
Howard.
Who I met this guy back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, and you were, I credit you. I mean, so let me set this story straight on here as I see it. I got out of school in 87. You went to Buffalo?
No, I went to Minnesota, same year though.
87.
KC, right?
And back then, 30 years ago, the big new thing was dental material science and this bleaching, bonding veneer. So dentistry was going from amalgam and gold to all this new bleaching, bonding veneer. And one company just really ran with it, and it was Williams Ivoclar. And the reason I believe that Bob Ganley and his $1 billion Ivoclar hit a home run out of the deal is because Gary found the 30 most influential movers and shakers in dentistry. You owned the entire lecture circuit and the bullpen and the AAA, and you would invite speakers to come and you would educate us intensely for 2 or 3 days, making it fun. There was never any you got to do this, you got to recommend that. You let any of your boys and girls say whatever they wanted to say. But what was so genius about you is you made sure the most influential dentist in America knew everything Ivoclar was doing.
Yep.
And then you would go out on the field and you would get questions about other products, and you'd be saying like, I never even heard of it. So congratulations, because I think you were the marketing.
You were one of them.
Yeah.
One of those original.
Yeah.
And it certainly just bringing, back then people were going to see once a year Ron Jordan or Gordon Christensen and take notes. And I think that aesthetic revolution changed that. And it was like yourself, Bill Dickerson, nobody knew him, but all of a sudden he said, I want to stop doing amalgams and do concept, and Ron Jackson and those guys. And they'd go anywhere and speak to a group. That was the first kind of traveling shows. And you're right. We brought them together annually and gave them entertainment.
But you were marketing leverage because you knew each one of these guys influences about 5,000 dentists.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get the 50 guys who each influence 5,000 dentists, and that was a very amazing marketing program. So then we got older.
Yeah.
And older, and got married, and had kids, and all that stuff. And then the next revolution was digital.
Yeah.
Then everything was going from X-rays to digital X-rays, waxing up a crown to CAD CAM, and then you went to Dallas, where E4D was started by very interesting man, Basil Heyman.
Basil Heyman, yeah.
Basil Heyman, his wife Dot. I'm in Arizona, and right where I got my MBA at ASU, there's these big white tents, and that was her company.
Yep.
And so they started E4D. So it was E4D and Sirona. And then E4D got swallowed up by the monster planned mecca out of Helsinki, Finland.
Yeah.
So what's going on now?
Yeah, so, kind of an interesting story. And I was attracted as much to the technology as I was to Basil Heyman when we, got down there. And the brilliance of these engineers, Mark and Henley, and the whole story of E4D. Because I was with Ivoclar at that time. Ivoclar invested in the company and then went out there, and I was very familiar with Sarek. And
so when you went there, you were still working for Ivoclar?
Yep.
So they invested in this, and you were an employee from Ivoclar going down there?
And then they decided they couldn't lose, obviously, getting an Ivoclar employee in the marketing and the clinical. And I really hit it off with the guys down there. And, we kind of know with the Sarek, they blazed the trails, but we also knew what they couldn't do. So when we went there, we said, okay, what are the 10 things Sarek doctors want? No powder, more than one tooth at a time. And so we just brought that same group of people that love to help, form a product and developed E4D. And, it's been fun. The brothers are still there every day. Still, I remember, and I was just in my office, I have framed the cover of Dentaltown 10 years ago, where Lee Culp, myself, Basil, Mark, and Henley, and Glenn, were on the cover. And we just are celebrating our 10th year now, so it's time to get back on that cover, maybe. Mark and Henley are still there.
I wish we did the cover. The dentist, the reason we quit doing covers is because dentists are They're just dentists. I mean, they're god dang, they get me so mad because when we started Dentaltown, they got mad because dental manufacturers on there, and I said it's not Dentist Town, it's Dentaltown. And if all the dentists were complaining that the composite was too thick, and all the dentists wanted it to be too thin, well, shouldn't the manufacturers know that? And I said, you strip away 500 dental companies, and we're sitting outside on a rug with a bunch of shit we bought from Home Depot, and the only reason we look amazing is because about 500 companies make us look amazing. And when I was little, my dad only had 2 vacations. It was an amusement park, like a Six Flags, Disneyland, whatever. And on that trip, so we did a Six Flags over wherever there was one. But when we were in that town, we went to where something was made. Like when we went to St. Louis, we watched Budweiser. When we bought our family station wagon, we drove to Detroit in our old family station wagon, and they pulled us in golf cart, electric cart trailer of our car from start to finish. I think it took like 6 hours. So when I was on vacation with my little kids, like when we were in LA, we'd stop by DenMat or 1-800-Dentist. One of the coolest things my boys, and I asked them what was the coolest vacation, they say it was in Oregon at ADAC.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
And it wasn't even the dental chairs, which I thought was amazing. Yeah. It was the fact that he restores all these old cars. And he let them sit on all these old restored cars, and he explained to them each car. I mean, Ken Austin. Yeah. He explained every car to my 4 boys. So I love this stuff. So I always like to do a product company profile of companies you can't live without. And then, but people on the message board say, well, do you believe any magazine that has a dental company on the cover? Yeah, and it's like, hey, asshole, do you do free crowns? Are you a volunteer dentist? Oh, would you believe any dentist that said you needed a crown who sells crowns for money and makes profit? I mean, they're just... I swear to God, sometimes I want to punch my own homies.
And
but that would be a cool story.
The dentists don't know how much effort it takes. Any of these products you have at how much effort, time it takes. But like at our place, you walk back and you can see where the mills are made, the scanners are made. It's
like when you
incredible.
worked at Alva Claire, how long did it take to go from idea? Like when you guys come out with 4 Seasons with Ron Jackson, how long did it take from idea to having that for sale in a dental office through Shine and Patterson?
3 or 4 years.
3 or 4, and how much money?
Oh, millions.
Millions of dollars of 3 or 4 years. And then when you tell that story to a dentist, like, advertising for money, for profit, you guys are evil.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, understand the value chain. Yeah. Understand how your partners work, how they survive.
And you break that all down into, we used to talk about a block or a pellet of Empress, $15, but it ends up making a crown that the dentist charges $1,000 for.
Yeah.
So it's the manufacturer or that implant. Yeah, there's big margins in implants, but still, they're part of a bigger procedure, and it takes a lot to do. You've got great manufacturers here, and they all put effort into making dentistry better. So,
So was the hardest part of going from Ivy Claire to Dallas, going from a Buffalo Bills fan to a Dallas Cowboy fan?
I'm a Minnesota fan, so...
You were always a Vikings fan?
Well, the funny thing is, so I lived in Buffalo throughout the 4 years that Buffalo went and lost the Super Bowls. I grew up in Minnesota. They lost 4 Super Bowls, and now I'm in Texas still waiting for that. I wasn't in Texas when the Cowboys won, so we're getting close, but I'm not a good luck charm for Super Bowl teams.
So what's got you excited now? What are you passionate about today? You've been in dentistry 30 years this year.
30 years now, and spend my 10 years in one spot and then kind of move a little bit. So we started with Ivoclar, 10 years there. Then I left for a little bit, went to 3i, Implant Innovations down there, and that's where I got the entrepreneurial bug that people, not just dentists, but there were entrepreneurs out there. Rich Lazara, Keith Beatty, that drew up the design of an implant and then made a $142 million company, just to get inspired. And there's where I met Curtis, and Curtis Jansen is,
prosthodontist out of Monterey Beach.
He's just a motivator. So just to get excited by all that, then came back to Ivoclar when they did the EMAX and helped through that and the lasers. And then when I met Basil and saw the potential, I feel like, I found that little dust of the Yukon gold, and I wanted to share with all my friends. So that was exciting because you could take digital dentistry and not just the norm, because the norm was only CEREC, but you could say, let's if you have a second's always easier. You know what to fix. So I think we did that. Laser, no powder, multiple teeth. And then all of a sudden we had a focus group like you talked about, and Gordon said, this is probably Christensen said 6 years ago, I think the next step is make it portable. Who wants to drag carts around? So from that, 3 years later, we came out with a laptop-based, scanning system. So it's those kind of light bulbs that go off, and then you get people that can make it happen. You're an inspiration because you throw out so many different ideas, but you've got all these people around you then making it happen. And that's kind of what it is. We've got the passionate people that, if you got a good idea, we're going to figure out how to do it. And so, we went from red laser to blue laser to now 3 lasers in the new scanner, so it picks up the broad spectrum. So passion's back because now we have some new things to talk about and innovate. So we have essentially, after 10 years, a brand new mill, a brand new scanner. And my family life now with Angela, my wife.
The dental assistant ninja? Dental ninja?
Ninja Dentistry.
Ninja Dentistry.
Yeah, and so it's an acronym for...
By the way, good job on... Yeah, you married up, buddy.
I did.
You married up. That is an amazing woman.
I don't know how I did that, but I'm very lucky. I'm blessed. But she came up with this concept, ninja. No, I'm not just any assistant. So
I want to podcast her.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah,
is she here with you?
No, but she'll get on with you all
the time. Well, tell her to Skype me sometimes.
Okay.
My number's in every girl's bathroom wall from 7-Eleven, Circle K.
I know that.
But yeah, after hours, weekend, whenever.
Okay. Yeah, she's marvelous story.
And then what a hell of a deal. Not just ninja.
Ninja. No, I'm not just any assistant. And
nice.
She empowers the assistant because, dentistry is a team sport, right? You can do it all, but I know your practice, you want to get in the mouth and get out of the way for the people that can, make it happen for you and go around. And we finally realized 10 years ago, Sherry White, who you also, I think, know, Shannon Pace at that time, and Angela got together at E4D, sat around a table, and we said, how can we empower assistants? And that's when we created that chairside dental designer program certification. And what I'm probably most proud of, if after 10 years now, we survey, and nothing against Sarek, but we know the doctor is the only one that would put powder on, and the doctor would only do this, and that's okay. But we tried to empower the team much earlier on.
Well, it's not okay. I take issue. It's not okay because, you're a doctor, and you bought a $140,000 Sarek machine to be downgraded to a lab tech.
Yeah.
And these guys are all saying that, we do them start to finish an hour. That's not what I hear in the audience.
Yeah.
The audience tells me, no, we have to book a schedule of 3 hours. Well, if you just bought $150,000 to be downgraded from a doctor to a lab tech. Do you know any lab techs who want to be downgraded to?
But, that's what the whole idea is. Everybody can participate. So Angie, and I'm stealing her thunder if you podcast with her, but she turned suction into production, and so what she does, she's a moneymaker for her practice, and she trains all these ninjas. But those 3 people, Sherry, Shannon, and Angie, kind of changed. But the greatest thing is, so we just did a survey.
So they're all in Dallas.
Shannon, is doing her own thing, but really supporting dental assistants. She started.
But where's she out of?
She's out in Virginia Beach. Sherry White's in Dallas, Angie's in Dallas. We got a whole team across.
Well, you know what? We should do a podcast. We can do the Brady Bunch thing. We can do four people.
That'd be great.
So let's get all 4 at the same time.
Yeah, but we just did a survey. We get several thousand owners out there. So when we go out and ask, who does what in your office, from prep to scan to design to mill to finish and seat. And we ask them, what percent do you do as a dentist, or what percent does your team do? And 60 to 70% of the time, the assistant is now doing the scanning, the designing, the trying as it goes down a little bit, the dentist will still do that. And obviously the prepping is the dentist and the seating. But everything else in between, our group is now doing majority are dental assistants. And they just love it because it's artwork. It's, I don't want to say downgraded to anything, but...
And you're creating a manufacturing job.
Yeah,
so you're buying a machine where you're upgrading a service job, a service sector job, to a manufacturing job.
And providing, something for it. And, the assistants, 99% are women, but they paint nails every day. Why not paint crowns and do this in the office? And whether you use a specialist, a technician, to me, the dentist should be cutting and seating, and diagnosing and treatment planning. But people say, and the CEREC guys do, it only takes me 10 minutes to design a crown. Well, 10 minutes of your time is different than...
That's 2 hygiene checks.
Yeah, so we just are working smarter, I think, and I'm very fortunate that I think the market's going that way, and we see them much more productive when you use everybody. So
and it's not a lot of dentists say, well, that's not my philosophy or this or that. Dude, 82% of you already signed up for a PPO, which is a 40%. When we got out of school, when you and I got out of dental school, I was UMKC and you were
Minnesota.
But that school wasn't accredited, was it?
Well, it might be. Might have been.
I'm just kidding. So when we got out of dental school, the number one cost was labor, 28%. Now the number one cost is adjusted production from I charge $1,000 for a crown, but I signed up with this PPO giving me $600. So the number one cost is adjusted production, 42%. Labor is still 28%.
Same, yeah.
So you don't have once you sign up for a PPO, you're committed to I got to do this faster, easier, higher quality, lower in price, and miniaturization. And so you can't say, well, I'm going to slow down and focus on blah, 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 when you already dropped your fee 42% on a PPO. Once you make that decision, you got to get faster, easier, higher
you have
quality.
to today, because
which means the doctor delegated.
You wanted to, you were working all the time back then, but you would work harder, and that doesn't work anymore. You got to get other people helping you.
Well, now they think they're working hard, so they're like squeezing a patient for lunch, but they don't realize they're doing 2 MOD composites, and they're getting paid $110, and their cost is $140. So working harder through lunch means they lose a grant, a $50 bill.
Yeah.
So I mean, who cares if you work through lunch if they're still losing money?
Yeah.
So what was it like? Most Americans don't realize that in Europe, one of the 400-pound gorillas is Ivoclar out of Liechtenstein and Plan Mecca out of Helsinki, Finland. What was that like working for a small mom-and-pop startup, Basil and Dot, to now owned by one of the biggest international Goliaths in dentistry?
Well, $2 billion or $3 billion companies, right? Ivoclar, Plan Mecca, and Henry Schein. They all have interest in E4D Technologies, and the two brothers still. So, it is kind of like sometimes 3 hands on a steering wheel trying to go which direction. But the innovation, what I love being in Dallas, is we've always had people come and visit. Your pictures on the wall, as well as thousands of dental professionals. And we've gone through now 15,000 students through our facility in 10 years. So they get to see it. They get to see manufacturing. They meet the quadlings, the originators. And that's where the action really takes place. And at the board level, we have great relationships. We partner with Plan Mecca and product naming. We can now scan, throw it into the cone beam system from Plan Mecca.
So has Stan Bergman of Schein ever made it out there?
Yeah, yes, several times.
Yeah, several times?
Yeah, the first time we had a road to Dallas. I'm a Minnesota guy, then Florida, then now Dallas. And the first year, Schein had their sales meeting every 2 years in Dallas. So the whole group came out, and we had a rodeo between our 2 buildings back there and did the Western thing. But early on, especially during the purchase or the investment, Schein, certainly looked around the world to see what to invest in.
So is that different cultures having a Stan Bergman from what town?
He's South Africa. So we have
Stan, South African.
Yeah,
I did not know that. But where's
he's
Schein?
in Melville.
Melville, New York.
Yep.
But he's originally from South Africa, and Basil was from South Africa.
Yeah.
So then,
and Mark and Henley are South African. Glenn, from that area. So a lot of group of.
I just lectured.
Joke.
I was a keynote South Africa this year.
Should have thrown their names up. Yeah.
Yeah. But, so is that a Helsinki, Finland culture versus South Africa culture versus Bob
Syracuse.
Bob, Syracuse, New York.
Liechtenstein. Yeah.
Bob's last name?
Ganley.
Bob Ganley out of Syracuse, New York.
No,
because I guess the sense of the joke is that in Asia they believe if you just make it really cheap, it'll sell.
Yeah.
That the Europe believes, like German, like if you just make it really, really good, it'll sell itself. And the Americans are like, we're just going to advertise the shit out of it, and we can sell shit to anybody. And everybody always says in MBA school that everybody needs to learn from the Asians, like, you know, try to make it less money. Everybody needs to learn from Europe, try to make it higher quality. Yeah. And everybody learns from America, try to be better marketing and advertisers.
Yeah. And there's a common thread, I think, through all the companies and Basel. What I learned from Basel most was vertical integration. Don't rely on other people for your success. And so that's why we built our own machines. We did our own marketing. We printed our business cards and our posters. We made the booths so we didn't have to rely on anybody else, self-sufficient, so we could do it all. And then you have control of from start to finish. And not finish Finland, but what we have also. And you know, you talked a little bit.
So you said the South Africans were vertical integration.
Basel was.
But he's South African.
Yeah, he's South African. But the common element with all those companies is a relationship. You kind of hinted at it with Ivoclar and bringing people in, and I've always had that philosophy. If you want to talk about our products, you have to use them and you have to like them. If not, that's okay. Don't say good things or bad things. But if you like what you do, it's a relationship. You know, 30 years you and I have gone back and forth and know each other, and Helsinki's that same way. If you go to Helsinki and look at the factory and and you look at Plan Mecca, then you go to Liechtenstein, a very similar, you know, culture, privately owned by one individual.
Does he still live in Ivoclar on the Canary Islands?
I don't know. Does he? I'm sure he.
Back in the day, it was an individual man who lived on the Canary Islands.
Oh, is that right?
That owned Ivoclar. Remember?
Yeah, but I mean now, Mr. Zeller, I think, probably travels around. Great young guy.
Is that the owner of Ivoclar?
Yeah. And then Helsinki, you know, that's a wonderful individual too that has sons in the business. So, and they're so big around the world that it's so impressive. And they continue to innovate. The funny thing about Plan Mecca, we were just at IDS, and we did a nice show of combining all the technology, starting with smile design, scanning, cone beam. And he even introduced a new stool, in dentistry. And that's how Plan Mecca started 45 years ago, was the introduction of a dental stool. So they're looking at innovating everything now, and back to the beginnings with you have all this digital stuff, but one of the new products was a new dental stool. So
and you know what? I got to tell you something about that dental stool. Now that I'm 54 and for 30 years had leaned my 10-pound bowling ball over, and the amount of damage I've done to my neck, now the only way I was able to get out of pain was hot Bikram yoga 2 or 3 times.
I saw that.
And I tell the millennials, what's got me most excited about the microscopes is I'd rather you sit up straight and look in a submarine and do this instead of leaning your 10-pound bowling ball over. And even though you got on loops, I'm an old man. I'm saying the whole these kids, they got their loops on, but they keep peeking. They keep doing this, and it's like you throw that 10-pound bowling ball around like that in your 20s and your 30s, dude. You're gonna pay a price from that.
Yeah,
I remember when I was a little kid in Kansas. You look at those old wheat farmers, and their hands looked like they'd been beaten with hammers. Because all those years of working on that equipment and everything, and you can't do construction for 30 years without tearing up your hands, and so I think the chair and ergonomics is one of my biggest regrets in dentistry. And I had all the money, I had the loops, I had everything.
Yeah,
I just was addicted to looking straight in there.
Yeah, and I remember in 87, 88, people would go over to Japan, and that's when they were trying to position, have the dentist sit like this, but position the patient. So the dentist was, and that kind of fell by the wayside. But now at IDS too, this automated, the innovation of glasses and being able to do dentistry like the physicians are doing with the microscopic and
you know what I
also
don't know if it was the right move in dentistry is when I was little. Like my dentist, Dr. Peltzer, he's stand up. He never sat down. And I look at a lot of dentists my age. We stand up for oral surgery. And we stand up to place implants, removable. But we sit down for operative. And I actually feel healthier and more jacked standing up doing extractions than I do sitting down doing little white and pretty direct composites. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Same trend in offices, right? People are the desks now. You're standing.
Yeah. So, what's got you most passionate now?
Well, I think tying this all together, it's fun coming back here. We haven't been here in about 4 or 5 years, Dentaltown. I saw T-Bone, and you said he started it 15 years ago, so congrats to you. Now it's getting the word out and changing everything digital. I think my and our company's mission, I think, will be every time, even though we're all talking digital scans and everything else, I think the future of our whole profession is going to be every time a patient sits down, we scan the arch to get that permanent record. And I know ortho has done it with one classic study, but wouldn't you love to see your teeth 20 years ago and see it today and watch how that morphed? Because, healthcare is all about change.
Well, if you did one thing you could do scanning is, so all the research shows that normal enamel wears 10, 11, 12 microns a year. So when someone's teeth wears down a millimeter,
something's happened.
That's 100 years of wear.
Yeah.
But if you always had digital x-rays or digital scans, you could come and say, Gary, you've been coming here 30 years. I'm going to roll back 10 years to now.
Yeah.
And then not say that your 11 millimeter tooth went to 8. You'd say, you have 300 years of wear in the last 5 years.
And that's, healthcare is, it's like my waistline. If it changes, something's up, right? So you kind of look at it. If change is the indicator that we should do something. And, at hygiene now, they'll put a little mark, maybe recession on tooth number 3. But instead of that, if we scanned every 6 months, stored it in the cloud, and then brought it down and compared it, and had the computer say, no, it moved, or this tooth rotated, or I remember Leinfelter. Remember Carl's still doing great, but he did studies saying
Catholic boy out of St. Louis.
Yeah, is he? No,
right?
No, North Carolina now. But
is he in North Carolina?
Yeah, wonderful guy. The good old
Love
days.
him, man.
Yeah. But he did a study that showed not only the 10 microns of wear of enamel, but approximately they would close. And so, just see your teeth almost in a movie of what happened over those years. And that's what we got to do. We got to record it so you can go back. Yeah, maybe we go back to the last set of x-rays, but shouldn't we go all the way back and see what changed?
One of the things that's really changed from 30 years ago when you and I got out of dental school to now is the millennials are more transient taking their jobs. I mean, they're working in LA one day and San Fran the next, then Boston. And when I have a real live dental office with real live new patients and nobody knows where their other x-rays are.
Yeah.
A lot of times you call that office, they don't even have them, or they'll be in the office and say, well, we're trying to download this on like a JPEG, but the assistant doesn't know how. And so going to a cloud base,
and maybe the patient owning access to it, right? So
or giving them a copy when they leave.
It is, right? Yeah. Or being able to always access it.
But that leads to another question: universal open systems versus closed systems.
Yeah.
One of the big complaints about the iPhone and Sirona is that it's a closed system.
Yeah.
And on Dentaltown, one of our writers, Tom Giacobbe, who's been writing a column since 2000, he wants it more open. What are your thoughts on open versus closed systems?
It's biased only because we are completely open. You scanned it, you own those files. The good and the bad with openness is you can get a good file or you can get a bad one, right? I relate it to a JPEG, right? If you have a JPEG, that's open essentially. You can go print it on a copier. You can go to Kinko's and make a good one. You can also screw it up, right? You can go into Photoshop and mess it up. So,
you mean alter it?
You can alter it and do things.
So you mean steal?
Steal.
Is that what you're doing?
Or just get a bad, the end result. Because scanning, you can have the best scan and you can have the best design, but if you throw it on something bad, you could take it to your mechanic and he could mill out an STL out of metal. If it's an STL, open file. So it depends, as long as you follow through with the right scan, the right design, and the right end product, then you'll get a good result. That's open, right? But if you have a closed system, that's why originally we were closed. Cerec still is to some extent, although they're starting to open up. But you want choices. You want to get the best MILF that you want. You want to get the best scanner. And as long as the support is there, you can mix and match those. So everything should be open.
Is that why Patterson used to have an exclusive with Cerac. They could only sell through Patterson.
Correct.
And
In
they
the
didn't,
States,
in the States. And they didn't renew that. And they were saying that's because their customers were also asking for other scanners or other pieces of the pie that violated their exclusive.
Yeah.
Is that how you saw that,
Yeah,
that chess play move?
Yeah, because dentists want choices, right? If you find something better, you want to use it and include it in your healthcare. And for me to say that everything I'm going to do in the next 20 years is going to be the best for you in build, it's not fair because there are other innovations. Printers coming out. Cerac doesn't have that, but why not be able to send something and print a guide if you wanted to? And so unless you have everything.
You just said print. So CAD/CAM was computer-aided design,
Yep.
computer-aided manufacturing, which really meant a reduction of a
Yep.
block. But now it's starting to be a copier where it's the starting with
Addition,
addition.
Yep.
What do you think of this new 3D printing?
Yeah, I think.
Is that what you're calling it, 3D printing?
Yeah. And the trend now, and it's pretty phenomenal because you'll see Planmeca's introduced a printer coming out very shortly for guides, aligners, those types of things, which are great. And temporary restorations. You look at the materials leader in the world, Ivoclar, they don't have a material to print yet. And so I think they will as soon as it becomes viable. But right now it's only for provisionals if you do something like that. But yeah, the reduction versus the additive, I think printers are going to be the way of the future for many things. I was in an office, a great office here, Dr. Michael Flores, the other day. And he's got a printer, and he's printing cookie cutters for his kids' cookies as well as surgical guides. It's amazing toy maybe at this point, but you can do amazing things with printers.
It's my best idea for me to become a multimillionaire. I'm going to get a 3D printer that prints other 3D printers. And
just roll them out.
I'm gonna. And you think I'll make good money doing that?
Yeah, you might. The one to look for, though, certainly you've got some high end, but the dentist can do a lot of things with. It's called Form Labs. Originally in jewelry business, it brought it into the dental world, and Lee Culp's got it, Jimmy Fincher, all these guys are getting this little printer that are allowing them to do some models and other things efficiency, very efficiently. So it's fun to look at that market, but not for restorations.
And I have that relationship to credit you. I mean, when you said Lee Culp, I used to be this. I got out of school in '87. I was 24. Started lecturing when I was, I think, 29, and you'd invite me down there amongst all these, like Lee Culp. And I was like the dumbest guy in the room by like at least 4 miles, and you turned me on to some of the greatest legends, and you invited me down with Larry
Rosenthal.
He
was at,
and then
too.
Yeah, at the ACD.
Yeah.
And then he told me, well, yeah, you can come down and spend a couple days in my office. And so you opened up so many doors for me personally. You did.
Yeah, but it's only because everybody's got the same relationship, right? Nobody had a big ego or pretentious. It was, you want to make dentistry better? Okay, let's do it together.
And you know what was the funniest thing about Larry Rosenthal? I thought he was on the lecture circuit because he was like doing the best dentistry in the world and all this stuff, which maybe he was or wasn't. But you know what my takeaway for 2 days from that guy? I mean, Larry, he was the most genius guy. So if I said to any American, okay, describe someone that's worth $100 million, they're always going to describe some guy like Trump, some man who owns a factory, a manufacturer, and all this stuff. Rosenthal knew the date. He said, if you're worth $100 million, you're a widow. All those industrial men, they all died of heart disease and died. They all sold their office. The wife got it, put it in a bond fund. It doubles every 7 years. And we would sit there and at lunch, we'd jump in his black Porsche, and he's all good looking and got all this hair. And he'd drive to some place where bunches of rich old Jewish ladies had lunch. Then she'd walk in there, oh my God, you're so beautiful. And then after work, he'd go to these restaurants on the 25th floor of some place where another 8 dozen Jewish women were all eating. And all he did was press the flesh and flirt and hug and kiss old widows. And at the time, I thought, well, the people that were getting veneers, they'd be like a 20-year-old girl who's like a 10 but has a flaw. Those girls don't have a dime. And he would tell every one of those ladies the same thing. If you got veneers, you'd look 10 years younger. There's like, oh my God. And they'd write him a check for like 50 grand and he'd throw on upper 10 veneers.
He's a master.
He's the most press the flesh marketing master to this day I'd ever seen. Maybe a close runner-up. Maybe Dorfman. He's good at networking through charity events.
I haven't seen him lately. He's still doing well?
Yeah, he's doing real well. But he pressed the flesh, and the more like he goes to fundraisers and he goes to charity. Oh, no, Rosenthal, are you kidding me? Yeah. He'd walk into any restaurant on
What you
Park
don't
Fifth.
realize with all these guys is there's, he's a classic pianist, Rosenthal. He was trained that way. He's a piano player? Yeah, and that's how he was originally trained in a lot of things. And he's got such a touch with his, almost like a technician in contouring. So not only is he good pressing the flesh, he was doing great things. So,
and we both had
to see all that.
We both had our first son the same year, and we both named him Eric.
Really?
That's what we have in common. That and the hair.
I think, Eric had hair.
But I'll tell you what, really, and Larry Rosenthal is who I idolize in selling dentistry. And when I hear dentists say, well, I don't like to sell dentistry, I was saying, then get out. I mean, can you imagine if you worked for a company that, say, it sold Nikes? I don't want to sell you. If you don't recommend dentistry, it's not that you don't like to sell. I wish you would leave the profession, because I know women who lost all their teeth and got a denture and committed suicide. So when women, and you go to a woman, go to your wife, and ask her, how much money would I have to give you to pull your front tooth and never replace it? What would your wife say?
There wouldn't be a number.
Yeah, she wouldn't do it for $1 million in cash. And then you have the balls to say that you don't even respect dentistry, that you don't like to sell dentistry. And then here's Larry Rosenthal pulling up to restaurants on Park Fifth Avenue, double parking his black Porsche, knowing he's not going to get a ticket before he goes in there and hands out 3 of his business cards, and knows to focus on the widows have all the money, tells 3 widows they'd look 10 years younger. Then we go get in his black Porsche. But from his office to the time we got to his house, it was 2 hours of just solid press the flesh marketing. I thought, God, this guy
he doesn't turn off. Those guys.
This guy's a whiz. and then compare that to the guy who says, well, I don't like selling dentistry. Well, then go be a plumber. Do you like selling shit? go plunge toilets. You know what I mean?
But the exciting thing about what I'm doing now, when you ask passionately, is bringing some of these guys back into play. The Trinkners, the Kosarskis, the Ed.
How's Trainer, Ohio?
Yeah, Ohio.
How's Joyce Trainer doing?
Great. I see him. I only see him on Facebook. I missed him.
And Joyce Bazette, you made Joyce Bazette, and then she became the first woman president of the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry.
And I see her on Delta Magazine, and it's pretty incredible.
See her on the cover of what?
Not the cover, but Best Dentist, when some of those ads in the Airline mag, she was in there. Yeah, she's changed women for dentistry, too. And when you look at how influential the women are, there was a great quote from one of the people at ADA. Soon, 80% of all offices will be 100% women. When you think of 50% of graduates now are women, dental assistants, 98% are women, dental assistants, 98% are women. Just think of the change there. And so we have to take that when we develop products. So our scanner now is smaller, lighter, all this stuff. The trends it's pretty amazing, the changes, right?
It's an interesting thing, because in the Soviet Union, where they had centrally planned society, boys had 27% more muscle mass, so we were construction, mining, military. And when I used to lecture in the old Soviet Union, they were all women. And then you go into so many other countries, women just naturally migrated to all the hospitals and the healthcare. Yeah. So I think
providers, right? Healthcare providers.
And right now, a little known fact that most people don't focus on enough is that today there's 2 million dentists on Earth. Today, 1.5 million of those dentists are women.
Is that right?
It's a male dentist thing in the 20 richest country, because the men always show up where there's a lot of money. So you go to the 20 richest country, there's no men in teaching, because there's no money in teaching, so it's all women. Men only show up in a suit and tie if there's a lot of money there. And women show up when it's to do the right thing. And you go to Kathmandu. I mean, a woman in Kathmandu made me I just burst out crying. She just said to her, I said, well, how much money does your clinic make? And she goes, well, I said, in U.S. dollars, how much money do you take home from your clinic? And she goes, well, I'm very lucky. My husband has a very good government job because my office has lost $50 U.S. a month for 20 years. I go, well, you work 6 days a week. Why do you do it?
Just doing it.
And she goes, there has to be a dental clinic in this city in the middle of nowhere, Nepal. Now, a man in a suit and tie would never do that. He'd go close down the office, say, well, it didn't work, and he'd take another job. Yeah. So women are, I think they're an amazing blessing. And the market knows it too.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you look at data of getting second opinions, I don't believe her, I don't trust her, we're selling the invisible. And the women dentists are far more trusting to the market. I mean, think about you. Your air conditioner broke down, and you call the AC guy, and he says, Gary, sorry, this is old. You need a whole new air conditioner. What percent of the time would you think, do I need a new air conditioner, or is he just trying to sell me a new air conditioner?
Most times,
yeah. And what if a woman showed up? Said, yeah, I looked at this thing, and I can't fix it. You need a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you trust women more. And dentistry, we sell the invisible. Yeah. And when you go to women who make most dental appointments, when they go to the $19.99 oil change, and the man walks out and says, well, we need to flush your transmission fluids and change your air filters. She's sitting there thinking, no, I don't. Yeah. You're just trying to sell me. But if a woman walks out, she's like, really? Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't think I've ever changed it. I can't ever remember changing. Yeah. So since they're so more trustworthy, I would hate to be...
if the dental assistant is primarily women now, when you walk out of the op, the patient's asking them, is what he said true, or is that... They're asking them.
The first 6 questions, if you leave on your iPhone and tape, every time you go over the treatment line, leave on your iPhone and hit record and leave. The first 6 questions are trust-based questions. Do I really need a root canal?
Yeah. Does it really work?
Would you let him do this on you?
Right.
Yeah. It's all trust because we sell the invisible. Yeah. I want to go another question. Milling chairside versus milling at the lab. Where is the market going? Where is it today? Where is it going?
Yeah, so when I first came in maybe 10 years ago into this whole field, my prediction would have been, 30% of dentists would probably do a scan design and mill in their office in the world of dentists, right? Because we did these surveys, and about 30 to 40% of dentists are craftsmen. The Paul Belvederes that can work with composites, the Kasarski that likes these direct things. Or they have hobbies building planes in their garage, right? Those are the kind of guys that want to see that crown, that want to tinker back in the day. So I predicted maybe 30 to 40%. It hasn't hit that yet for that, but I think 40% of dentists will want to scan and send it off to laboratories or a service. It doesn't have to be a laboratory anymore. But in those 10 years, labs have opened up to digital much more faster than dentists. Every lab now, 70% take digital files. And timing, they can get them back the next day or quickly. So a lot of those variables. But the one variable you can't change is time. There's no lab you can send it to and get it back in that hour or that 2-hour appointment, unless you have a centralized mill with 5 offices around it. So the answer is, I think eventually, as things get easier, and it's getting there now, where I don't have to spend so much time designing. The scanning is fast and quick. Why should I take time to make a temporary when that's about the same time it would either take to print or mill the final crown? Because what people don't realize is every time you do a digital impression that you're going to send to a lab, you have to make a conventional impression to make a temporary. So, if you're going to send a case off to a lab, you have to have a provisional, even if it's digital. So now, if I'm trying to go digital I have to scan, send it, but then I got to prep, I got to cover. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do an alginate, make a quick temp, and seat it. So you kind of bust the whole premise there. So answer your question, eventually everybody's going to do more of the things in their office because that's how they can be more successful. Not have patients come back. Patients want convenience, right? So the technology is getting quick enough and fast enough and consistent enough that I think eventually most offices, there's 30% of dentists that will never change anything, so you can erase that. But I think most people will own a scanner pretty quickly, and hopefully they can grow into having a mill or a printer, and deliver a restoration right then. I relate it back often to lens crafters. 1983, lens crafters changed the world of I needed glasses, and what did we do growing up? If you needed glasses, you'd go and you'd pick out a lens, or you'd pick out the frames, and they would send it away for 2 weeks to have somebody grind the lens and pop them in. And then you'd go back for that seating appointment, basically. And the dentist, in this case, the optician, would adjust it, make it fit your face. And that's what dentists do now, make it fit the prep. And in 1983, they changed that by simply picking up that lens grinder and putting it right where the patient could see it.
Was that in Texas? Pearl? Was it Pearl?
Not Pearl Vision is one thing, but lens crafters. I don't know
Lens
where they started.
was before Pearl?
Yeah, lens craft, first 1 hour system, 1983.
Was lens craft?
Yeah.
I'm so old. I was sad a whole summer. I think I was 10 years old. My best friend, David, we were playing around. He broke his glasses, and he was like blind. So it took like 2 weeks to get into the physicians, and then he got his prescription. Then they sent off for like 2 weeks, but basically, the 3-month summer, he didn't have his glasses. So for the whole summer, he couldn't see.
Yeah.
And it was awful. And now today, a kid can go to lens crafters.
Well, today that guy would go and print a frame and a printer.
Yeah.
Go to Best Buy and get a printer.
So when people always say, "Where's the market going?" I always say it's going towards the customer. I mean, when that little kid had to spend a summer not seeing because the value chain of ophthalmology didn't have their shit together.
Yeah.
And I don't really, dentists are always talking. Just like, I'll take another paradigm. These endodontists, these specialists come out of school, and they say, well, I'm gonna set up my own office to be an endodontist. It's like, because it's all about you. Because the research shows that when you give a patient a referral slip, that they don't go. They want lens crafter. They want it all in one place. So I say, well, why don't you find $5 million practices and do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and do the endo and split it 50%. Yeah, 50% overhead. You have your referral base, but the customer. No, I don't like to call them customers. I like to call them patients, and they don't like to sell dentistry. Yeah. They like to present treatment because dentists have to do everything screwed up. And I tell these specialists, like, it's tough being an orthodontist. Orthodontics is a crowded space. And you're going to San Fran, Dallas, and Orlando. Why don't you put your own ego out? You already got $350,000 of student loans. Why do you want to build a dental office? Why don't you go find the 5 biggest practices in Dallas and say, I'll come in and do your ortho. Yeah. Why don't you go to the patient? Because at the end, it's like when people say, well, I think we should all drop our PPOs. Oh, so you think the future is that patients like higher prices and a smaller selection? You don't think the market's going to greater selection, greater service for lower price? I mean that's where the market's going. So the PPOs are more dentistry for less money. That's where every market goes. I'd rather go one-stop shopping.
That's what it is.
Than go to a periodontist, a pedodontist, a prosthodontist, that's crazy.
It's about the experience, and with all, whether it's CEREC or E4D, if a patient gets a same-day crown, they'll never accept anything less. They won't let you put that, as Letterman says, spare part in my mouth, walk away, have it come out. They insist. I'll wait for the appointment where you can do it all in one.
Do you ever remember when Letterman was on Johnny Carson? Before Johnny Carson died, and now I guess Letterman's mom just died last week. Yeah. Johnny Carson said, I get so mad when I see you, and David Letterman said, why is that? And he goes, I had to die out of space just like you, and they told me I could not go on TV, and he said I had to go down and get my 2 teeth filed down for a crown. And he goes, since that's happened, every 10 years they've had to be replaced. And now I see guys like you and Madonna and all these people walking around with space in their teeth. I had to file my 2 front teeth down to be right.
To be pretty, yeah.
And it's funny how times change.
Yeah. But,
so Plan Mecca, they're also big in CBCT.
Yeah, incredible. Largest 2D and 3D in the world system. So, and when you can combine all that data,
will you combine the E4D and the CBCT?
Yep. In one software. It's called Romexis.
It's called what?
Romexis.
Romexis?
Yep. And so that's Plan Mecca's software. And you can bring in your photo. It can scan your face and give you a 3D. It can do a cone beam. and then I can scan you in the mouth. We merge all that file together, so for the first time ever, a patient sees
the Syrac section message boards on Dentaltown was getting huge. It got so big that Samir Puri decided to take it all and start Syrac online.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Didn't know.
But so that's why every time I try to get a townie to make me a Syrac online course, because we have 350 courses on Dentaltown, they've been viewed 1 million times. And every time I talk a dentist to make me an online C course on Syrac, he goes, "Oh, great. And then all of a sudden, I don't hear from him. What happened? He goes, "Oh, well, now that I've joined the team at Spear and Patterson, once they find out, everybody's." But you should do that on E4D. You should. You don't have a Syrac online yet. You got to build up.
You've got a great.
We got 275,000, and you know what? People say, well, don't they all go to Facebook? So we have 275,000 dentists on Dentaltown. And we put up 350 online courses. They've been almost viewed 1 million times. But what's funny is people say, well, isn't Facebook going to hurt it? How many dentists follow me on Facebook?
Oh, I got to get glasses, Howard, if you're going to ask a question.
How many dentists?
Wow, 279,000.
It's the same townies on the average human has 27 apps on their phone. So they bounce, people say, oh, well, they're on Facebook. Well, they're on Facebook. They might be on Twitter, Dentaltown, Orthotown, whatever the heck. No. But I think you should get a curriculum, because what the market wants to know is, I think CAD-CAM, I think you got so many amazing boys, because that's what you've mastered your whole life, of the bullpen. I mean, you got the major league players at camp. You should have them do online CE courses. And also the market really wants to know is these guided surgery single implant. So my beef with the implant market and the whole crown and bridge and prosthetic market is, when you look at the data, 96% of crowns are done one at a time. They're most likely done on the 6-year molar.
Yep.
The molar endo is most likely to be the 6. So when you look at a insurance distribution of all the dentistry done, and we're talking about firms like Delta with 100 million claims. You look at the 1 to 16 teeth on the upper and the 17 there, there's almost no data. Then you get to the 6-year molars and it's off the chart. It's so extreme that to not do an occlusal composite preventative restoration, whatever, on a 6-year molar the minute you see it, you have to be demographically, epidemiologically dead not to see that tooth. Say, this is the most likely tooth for everything to go wrong.
Curtis calls it the money tooth.
The money tooth, yeah. And you got to, and acid etching and doing a sealant on pits and fissures filled with Oreo cookie and crud and whatever the shit's down there. No, air abrasion it out. Drill it out. Get an occlusal composite there and tell his mother, this tooth is the most likely to be root canaled, crown, extracted, replaced with an implant. When you see that tooth, you should shit your pants. Okay, everything goes wrong with the 6s. But back to crown and bridge, molar endo, implants is that 96% of the time when they do a Syrac machine crown, they just want to do a molar. They just want a bunch of courses on the molar. When you do a guided implant surgery, it's just going to be to replace a molar. Yet you go down to the big dental conventions, and the courses are like all on 4.
Yeah.
And the crown and bridge courses are on like full mouth rehabs, or here's a 28 crowns to change your TMJ. It's like, dude, I'll have everybody raise their hand who hasn't done one full mouth arches of dental crowns in the last 2 years, and everybody stands up and raises their hand. And then I'll say, what do you do all day long? And they say 6s. So I would like to see, that's what I call real world dentistry. I'd like to see.
Call it Walmart dentistry.
Yeah. Dickerson called me Walmart dentistry.
Right?
Yeah, Dickerson said, well, if you don't want to go to LVI, you could go listen to Farran and be a Walmart dentist. And I'd like, well, how is that an insult? Because Sam Walton has always been the richest man in the world. In America, but everybody always says it was Bill Gates, because Bill Gates, it's all under his name. Sam Walton split it between his wife Helen, his 3 sons, and his daughter. So when all the journals say, here's Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, the Waltons were number 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. And if you had simple addition, which no journalist in America has ever reported on, except the only people that are that elite would be like Forbes or Fortune, that would say the Walton family is actually they make the Gates look like unemployed. By the way, Zach's working today on his birthday.
Oh, on your birthday. Happy birthday.
He's 22 today.
Wow, congrats.
And, you're 22 today, and I've known this guy for 30 years.
Yeah. The last photo I saw were your boys all around the pool. Remember that photo?
And he was good friends with your mother, so he even could be your father. we'll never know till we get the saliva
Happy
DNA
birthday,
test. But so what I'm always asking people is I don't want a bunch of courses on all on 4. I don't want a bunch of full mouth rehab bullshit. My homies want to see your CAD/CAM courses on a first molar.
Yep.
They want to see it tied into a CBCT to make a surgical guide for a first molar.
Right.
They want to work with an implant company. Well, they'll buy a kit. Well, you don't make money in anything in dentistry unless you do it one time a week. That's critical mass for profitability. They want to get with an implant company and a system and a surgical guide so they can replace a first molar once a week. And if they learn that system and they can do 50 a year, they'll make bank.
Yeah.
But the all-on-4, like America has 320 million people, and Clear Choice does 18,000 units of all-on-4 a year. That's not even a rounding error. Yeah. I mean, when you look at the Census Bureau population, the plus or minus is bigger than 18,000 units a year. Meanwhile, back at the farm, we're doing one-tooth first molar dentistry.
It's all one tooth at a time.
And it's the first molar.
Yep.
Almost all the time.
We'll do it. I mean, you got Howard, you got Dr. Kelleher's doing a great job on the E4D.
I did a podcast with him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Huh?
Get him to make some online sales. Yeah. Who else do you like?
Wally Renee out in MUSC.
Send me
Alex
send him a list. Say, I want to podcast him.
Okay.
And send him a list of Howard Goldstein and say, we'd like some online CE courses. And then if you got some, if you got and the other thing about the E4, the CBCTs, let's get honest about the CBCTs. When you get your first one, okay, I got 3 dentists in my practice. Every CBCT, there's shit on there. We don't even know what it is. We can't read it.
How to read.
We need to get your greatest oral radiologist to make some courses on just reading CBCTs. Yep. In fact, next year, county meetings, we're done with the Vegas deal.
Going to Orlando. Right.
We're gonna move to Orlando because my generation thought the Rat Pack. They thought, who was it? Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, Frank Sinatra,
Joey Bishop. I saw him in that photo.
They were smoking martinis and
Kennedy with the guy that married Kennedy. I forget.
But the millennials think, oh, it's smoky. It's that I want to go to Orlando. It's more healthy and all that. But you know what? I wish E4D do. They want more hands-on courses.
Yep.
I wish E4D could deliver us a bunch of people who could teach how to read a CBCT.
Yeah, they can. So, Plan Mecca, that's one of their most popular courses. And Kelleher just took it, too. He'd come in and reading the CBCT.
But is it an online course? Or
it's not online yet. Yeah. No, but you could get that. We could hook you up with that. Yeah. That'd be great.
Because nobody wants to be Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Stevie Wonder would turn over all of his money to see like you and me. And I don't know one dentist who ever went from 2D to 3D, including myself, who would ever go back. That's a given. Yeah. Nobody wants to go back. But in saying that, the number one buyer's remorse is, what is this?
What am I looking at?
I mean, it happens once a week with really smart dentists. Like, what is that? And you got 3 people. You got 30 years of college looking at this picture thinking, what is that?
But we never read them in school, right? We never.
Yeah.
We were a 2D world. Now you're right, it's 3D.
Well, again, I want to say seriously again, you turned me on to more movers and shakers. You got me more connected earlier on in my career. I owe so much of everything I ever did from meeting Gary Severance. And I just think the world of you. And thanks for all that you've done for me personally.
Everything you've done, yeah.
And
absolutely.
Thanks for everything you've done for dentistry. And I hope we do more together in the future.
Howard, thanks so much. Happy birthday, then.
Happy birthday, Steve.